The sidewalk is my stage now. No spotlight, no smoke machines, no roaring crowd, just the hum of traffic and the scrape of shoes as people hurry past. I sit cross-legged near the corner of 7th and Pine, a scuffed guitar across my lap, a paper cup at my feet. Loose change rattles like offbeat percussion when someone feels generous. Most don't. Most don't even look. I used to open shows with silence. Let the tension build before the first chord. Out here, the silence isn't tension. It's indifference. It doesn't rise or crackle. It just settles, heavy as fog, pressing on my chest until I strum to remind myself I still exist. The guitar isn't the one I toured with. That beauty had a sunburst finish and a neck smooth as glass from 1,000 encores. This one's a pawn shop rescue with a hairline crack near the bridge. If I keep the tuning half a step down, the strings stay put. Old showbiz trick. When the voice is tired and the world is colder, tune down and lean in. I play what I can, bits of the songs the world once knew me for, stitched between covers people recognize in 3 seconds or less. Recognition is currency. If a passerby mouths the first line, I know I might earn a quarter. If someone stops, I might earn dinner. If someone claps, well, people don't clap on sidewalks. Not for me, not anymore. A boy, maybe 8, slows in front of me, eyes wide. His mother tugs his sleeve. "Don't stop," she whispers, as if music were contagious. The boy glances back apologetically. I smile and bend the note a little sweeter, a little sadder, for an audience of one who isn't allowed to listen. Wind slides down the avenue and under my coat. My fingers sting. I blow warmth into them between chords. Years ago, I wore in-ears and had a tech backstage warming up backups in case a string snapped mid-song. Now I keep a single spare in my pocket, coiled like a secret. If it breaks, the set is over. I try one of mine, an old single that once climbed the charts and then lived rent-free in a summer everyone remembers differently. I'd written it in a motel in Tucson after 3 sleepless nights in one tiny miracle. A melody that felt like sunrise. Tonight the melody arrives thin but faithful. A couple turns their heads as they pass. The woman's mouth opens like she might say, "Is that?" But she doesn't. Their footsteps fade and the chorus dies on the winter air. I close my eyes and picture lights, warm amber on my face, cool blue at my back, a halo out in the crowd where phones sway like a field of stars. The roar always came right after I hit the last note of the bridge and lifted my hands from the guitar. 3 heartbeats of a held breath, then a wave. That wave could knock you flat with love. It used to. Now waves are for traffic and litter, pushing napkins into gutter grates. A siren wails a few blocks over. I pivot into a cover, something steady, a song with bones, the kind that can hold even when the throat is rough. My voice is lower these days, not from cigarettes or whiskey, but from weather and worry. I wrap the lyric in the gravel that life gave me for free and aim it at the window of the deli across the street. The cashier glances up, then back to his till. No sale. A man in a construction jacket pauses, digs in his pocket, and drops 2 quarters and a nickel into the cup without breaking stride. The sound is bright as cymbals. "Thanks," I say, and I mean it. Kindness is a chord you never forget. Between songs, I talk to myself the way I used to talk to stagehands through a headset. 2 more tunes, then warm up, I murmur. And by warm up, I mean wrap the scarf higher, flex the hands, think about coffee I can't afford. I strum an open E and let it ring. The city swallows it before it reaches the corner. An older woman stops, really stops, the way a person does when memory taps her shoulder. She studies my face like she's scrolling through an old playlist in her head. "Weren't you?" she begins, and I want to rescue her, to say the name I used to carry like a banner. But names are heavier than guitars when you're out here. I give her the chorus instead, the one she almost remembers. Her eyes soften. She nods, just once. "You still got it," she says and moves on. "You still got it." The words land like a blanket. I let the next chord bloom slow and sweet. For a few minutes, I'm not invisible. For a few minutes, I'm a man doing the only thing he's ever truly known how to do. Headlights smear along wet asphalt. The coffee shop on the corner flips its lane to closed. I count the take in the cup, $1.85. Enough for a small something if I choose right, not enough for heat. I tuck the coins into my pocket and cradle the guitar. Like a sleeping animal, the cold finds my bones again. A bus huffs to the curb and opens its doors. The driver leans out. "You can ride warm a few stops if you play us a tune," he calls with a grin. The offer makes my throat tight. "Deal," I say, climbing aboard. On the bus, under humming fluorescent lights, I play softly, a lullaby I wrote years back for a crowd that didn't know it needed one. Two teenagers in the back stop talking. A nurse in scrubs closes her eyes. The driver taps the wheel in time. When I finish, no one claps, but three people smile at me like I've given them something that matters. It's enough. I step off at 10th, air colder, night deeper. I find my spot under the pharmacy awning, lay the gutter, and slide my coat under my head. The city exhales. Somewhere far above, apartments glow with lives that include leftovers and laughter and deadlines that aren't about staying warm. I hum the last line of the bus lullaby and let it fade. Tomorrow, I'll tune down and try again. The sidewalk will still be a stage, the crowd will still rush past, and I'll still sing. Because even when people walk through you like smoke, a song makes you solid. It tells the air your shape, it tells you your name. Out here, that's how you keep from disappearing. For the sidewalks became my stage. Before the cold air scraped my lungs, there were nights when the world held its breath just to hear me sing. I still remember those nights with a clarity that hurts, as if they happened yesterday instead of a lifetime ago. It started in smoky bars and coffee houses, when my name wasn't yet known, but my voice carried across crowded rooms. I'd stand on a tiny platform with a borrowed microphone, my guitar plugged into an amp that buzzed like an angry bee. The audiences were small, but when I hit the right note, I could feel them lean in, could feel the room pause, could feel the weight of silence, thick with expectation. That silence was sacred. It told me they were listening. Then came the break. A producer in the back of a dingy club, arms crossed, watching me with eyes that gave nothing away. After my set, he walked up, handed me his card, and said, "You've got something." Just 3 words, but they cracked open a door I had been banging on for years. The next months were a blur. Studio sessions that lasted until dawn, endless retakes, cigarette smoke curling above mixing boards. I lived on caffeine and adrenaline, chasing perfection in every note. And when the album finally dropped, it was like striking a match in a dry forest. The songs spread, first local radio, then regional, then national. My name climbed charts I'd only dreamed of. The first time I heard my voice on the radio, I was driving alone on the highway. The DJ said my name like it was something important. Then the opening chords filled the car. I pulled over, tears stinging my eyes, listening as strangers called in to request it again. I laughed and cried all at once, whispering, "They're listening. They're finally listening." With fame came the stages. No longer bars or coffee houses, now theaters, arenas, outdoor festivals where the crowd stretched further than I could see. Spotlights burned hot on my skin, amplifiers shook the ground beneath me, and the roar of thousands lifted me higher than I ever thought I could go. I'd close my eyes and let the music pour out, and when I opened them, I saw faces glowing, hands raised, mouths open, singing words I had written in lonely motel rooms. That feeling, that connection, was pure electricity. Backstage was chaos and glamour. Interviewers shoving microphones in my face, stylists fussing over my clothes, managers barking into cell phones about the next tour, the next deal, the next opportunity. It was exhausting, yes, but it felt like proof that I mattered. The world had once ignored me. Now it couldn't get enough. Anna, my wife then, was my anchor. She traveled with me when she could, sitting quietly in green rooms, waiting in hotel lobbies while fans crowded around me. She used to say, "You shine brightest on stage, but don't let the lights blind you." I promised her I wouldn't. I meant it too. But fame has a way of blinding you even when you think you're in control. Still, there were moments of pure joy. I remember a sold-out show in Chicago, the crowd chanting my name before I even walked out. My chest felt like it might burst as I stepped into the lights, guitar in hand. I strummed the first chord, and the roar was deafening. It was like standing in the middle of a storm, only this storm lifted you instead of breaking you. After the show, a fan approached me with tears streaming down her face. She clutched my hand and said, "Your song saved my life." I didn't know what to say. I just hugged her. In that moment, I realized the power of music wasn't in fame or money. It was in reaching someone's soul. Those were the days when the world listened. Interviews on late-night television, magazine covers, endless flights from city to city. I signed autographs until my hand cramped, smiled for cameras until my cheeks ached. Exhausting, yes, but intoxicating. Everywhere I went, people recognized me. They wanted my time, my voice, my presence. I was never invisible. And yet, even in those golden days, cracks were forming. I didn't notice them then, or maybe I chose not to. The endless touring wore me down. The pressure to always be better, louder, fresher gnawed at me. Sometimes after a show, I'd collapse in the hotel room, staring at the ceiling, whispering, "How long can I keep this up?" But I pushed those doubts aside. I told myself the music, the fame, the applause, it was forever. I thought I had carved my name into the world, unshakable. I was wrong. If you've never tasted fame, it's hard to describe. It's sweet, intoxicating, and dangerously addictive. It doesn't come all at once. It arrives in small moments, little sparks that build until suddenly you realize you're standing in the middle of a firestorm. For me, the first spark was a tiny club downtown, the kind of place where sticky floors clung to your shoes and the stage lights flickered because someone had jerry-rigged the wiring years ago. I was playing a Tuesday night slot, the kind reserved for nobodies. A few tables filled with friends, a handful of strangers nursing cheap beers. I strummed my guitar, sang my heart out, and expected nothing. Then halfway through one of my originals, I noticed something. A couple in the back stopped talking. They leaned forward, eyes fixed on me, listening. It was small, just two people, but for the first time I felt the shift. That magic when words and melody reach someone's core. I carried that moment with me for weeks. Soon after I played another gig, this time opening for a local band with a bigger following. When I finished my set, someone shouted for an encore. Me, an encore. My knees shook, my chest filled with something I can only call fire. I played one more song, and the applause was louder than anything I'd heard in my life. That sound clung to me, haunting and thrilling. The real break came when a small radio station picked up one of my songs. It wasn't even my favorite, just a track I'd thrown together late at night, recorded in one take. But somehow it resonated. I remember sitting in my beat-up car, hands gripping the wheel, when I heard the DJ say my name. My song filled the speakers, and I screamed with joy, pounding the steering wheel until my palms hurt. I called everyone I knew. "Turn on the radio! That's me!" From there, the snowball rolled fast. Local papers wrote features, rising voice in the city. Coffee shops invited me to play weekends. Bars paid me actual money instead of free drinks. I quit my side job, stacking shelves at a grocery store, because suddenly the music covered rent. The first time a fan asked for my autograph, I laughed thinking it was a joke. She shoved a napkin into my hands, her face glowing. "Please," she said. I scribbled my name awkwardly, heart racing. Walking home that night, I kept looking at my hand, half expecting the ink to burn into my skin. Of course, fame wasn't just applause and autographs. It was opportunity. A local producer heard me play and invited me to his studio. I walked in, nerves jangling, and saw the walls lined with gold records. I couldn't breathe. "Relax," he said. "Just sing like you're back in the club." I did. And when he played back my voice through those massive speakers, it didn't sound like me. It sounded like someone who belonged. The first time I held a demo CD in my hand, my name printed on the label, I nearly cried. I carried it everywhere, showing it to strangers, bartenders, cab drivers. "That's me," I'd say. Some smiled politely, but others leaned in, curious, wanting to know more. I was no longer just another dreamer. I was a singer with proof. Then came the tour. Small venues at first, opening for bigger acts. I slept in vans, ate fast food, lived on adrenaline. Crowds weren't always huge, but they were loud. They clapped, they shouted, they sang along to choruses they'd only just learned. Every night was a drug I couldn't quit. I'll never forget the first time someone recognized me on the street. I was walking downtown when a young man stopped me. "Hey, aren't you?" He named one of my songs. My jaw dropped. "Yeah," I said, my voice shaky. He grinned and asked for a selfie. Afterward, I stood frozen on the sidewalk, grinning like a fool. I wasn't invisible anymore. With fame came better clothes, better venues, better company. Journalists wanted interviews. Local TV invited me for a segment. I remember sitting under the hot studio lights, makeup brushed across my face, hearing the host say, "Please welcome one of the city's fastest rising stars." I smiled, answered questions, played a song live. When the camera stopped rolling, the producer shook my hand and said, "You're going places." Anna was there through it all. She clapped the loudest at my shows, carried cables when I was too tired, reminded me to eat when I forgot. She kept me grounded, telling me, "Fame's a wave, ride it, but don't let it drown you." At the time, I laughed. I thought I could surf forever. Those first tastes of fame lit a fire in me. I craved more. The bigger crowds, the louder applause, the brighter lights. I chased it with everything I had, never pausing to wonder what might happen when the wave inevitably crashed. Because waves always do. Fame isn't a door you walk through once. It's a hallway that stretches endlessly, lit by flashing bulbs and fueled by noise. Once I tasted it, I couldn't stop moving forward. Life in the spotlight was dazzling, intoxicating, and slowly it became the only reality I knew. I remember my first big tour vividly. No more vans or motels. This time we had buses with bunks, catering tables loaded with food, and crews who handled every detail. When I walked into arenas and theaters, my name glowed in neon above the entrances. "Tonight, Michael." The sight of it sent shivers down my spine. It wasn't just me anymore. It was a brand, an event, something people bought tickets to experience. Backstage buzzed like a beehive. Stagehands with headsets hustled in every direction. Makeup artists powdered my face. Stylists adjusted jackets worth more than I once made in a month. Promoters whispered about numbers. Tickets sold, records charted, merchandise flying off the tables. Everyone seemed to need a piece of me. I told myself it was proof I'd made it. On stage, I was a king. The lights blinded me, but beyond them I could sense the sea of faces. Thousands chanting my name, singing my lyrics, holding up signs that read, "Your music saved me," or "Play our song." When I strummed the first chord, the sound of the crowd nearly drowned out the guitar. That roar, God, that roar, it's like nothing else. It fills you, lifts you, convinces you you're invincible. Television came next. Morning shows, late-night interviews, magazine spreads. I learned how to smile for the cameras, how to answer the same 10 questions in 20 different ways. What inspired your music? How does it feel to be famous? What's next for you? I gave polished answers, but deep down I sometimes wanted to say, "I don't know. I'm just trying to hold on." The money followed quickly. Checks larger than I ever imagined landed in my account. I bought a bigger house for Anna and me, cars we barely drove, clothes that hung in closets untouched. We dined in restaurants where the waiters treated me like royalty, slipped into VIP lounges where drinks flowed without cost. Everywhere we went, doors opened. I was no longer just Michael. I was Michael, the singer. Anna, always steady, tried to keep me grounded. "Don't lose yourself in it," she warned. I kissed her forehead and said, "I won't." But in truth, part of me already had. It's hard to stay grounded when the world keeps lifting you higher. The schedule was relentless. Weeks blurred into months, each day packed with interviews, flights, sound checks, performances. Jet lag became normal. Meals happened in airports. Sleep was a luxury. Some nights, I stood on stage with a smile plastered on my face, even as my body begged for rest. The audience never knew. That was part of the job. Give them the show, no matter what. Behind the glamour, cracks began to show. I missed birthdays, anniversaries, quiet dinners with Anna. She put on a brave face, but I saw the sadness in her eyes when I packed another suitcase. We'll make up for it later, I promised. But later never came. Later was always another city, another stage, another crowd. Still, the high of performing drowned out the guilt for a while. After each show, as the crowd roared and the lights blazed, I told myself it was worth it, that this was what I was meant for. That sacrifice was the price of greatness. One night in Los Angeles, after a sold-out concert, I stood alone in my dressing room. Flowers, champagne, fan letters piled high. I looked in the mirror, sweat dripping, makeup smudged, eyes bloodshot. The reflection didn't look like me anymore. It looked like a character I was playing, someone larger than life, someone untouchable. But when the makeup wiped away, when the roar of the crowd faded, I was just Michael again. Tired, lonely, uncertain. The irony of life in the spotlight is that it can make you feel invisible in your own skin. Everyone sees the version of you they want. The star, the hero, the dreamer. Few see the cracks underneath, and fewer still care. Yet in those years, I clung to the applause like oxygen. Each cheer convinced me I was alive. Each autograph reminded me I mattered. Without it, I didn't know who I'd be. That thought terrified me more than anything. Looking back now, I see how dangerous that dependence was. But then it felt like the only truth. Life in the spotlight was everything I dreamed of, in the beginning of everything I was about to lose. Life in the spotlight looked flawless from the outside. Fans only saw the lights, the cameras, the roar of the crowd. What they didn't see were the shadows backstage, the exhaustion hidden behind rehearsed smiles, the cracks forming slowly, silently, where no one was looking. The first crack was exhaustion. My schedule was relentless. Interviews at dawn, flights across time zones, rehearsals, then 2-hour shows that left me drenched in sweat. Nights blurred into mornings, mornings into nights, until I lost track of what city I was in. I'd wake in hotel rooms with blackout curtains, disoriented, whispering, "Where am I today?" It was thrilling at first, but after months, the thrill dulled into numbness. Anna tried to remind me of balance. She'd call between shows, her voice soft but steady. "Michael, you need to rest. Take a day off." I'd laugh it off. "The world doesn't wait, man," I'd tell her. "If I stop now, I'll lose everything I built." She sighed, but she understood, or at least she tried to. The second crack was loneliness. Ironically, I was surrounded by people all the time. Fans, managers, crews. But I had never felt more isolated. Everyone wanted something from me. To the record label, I was a product. To promoters, I was a ticket sale. To fans, I was an idol. But to me, I was just tired. The only person who saw Michael, not the singer, was Anna. Boss, Anna. And even she was slipping further away as I spent more nights on the road than at home. The third crack was temptation. The road is filled with it. Alcohol at every after party, pills offered by someone who swears it'll help you sleep, help you wake, help you perform. At first, I resisted. I told myself I was stronger than that. But one night after a grueling show, when my body ached and my mind wouldn't stop racing, someone handed me a little white pill. "It'll take the edge off," they said. I hesitated, then swallowed. They were right. It dulled the edge. It dulled everything. Soon it wasn't just one pill, one drink. It was a routine, something to get me on stage, something to calm me after, something to keep me going in between. I told myself it was fine, that everyone did it, that it was just part of the life. But in the quiet moments, I knew better. The fourth crack was my voice. Years of strain, late nights, and too little rest began to take their toll. Notes I once hit effortlessly now scraped raw. My throat burned after every show. Doctors warned me to slow down, to give my vocal cords time to heal, but I ignored them. "The fans are waiting," I said. "I can't cancel." Pride was louder than caution. One night in Dallas, I stepped on stage and opened with my biggest hit. The crowd erupted, but halfway through my voice cracked, sharp and painful. I pushed through, forcing notes that no longer came. By the end, my voice was gone, and the silence afterward was deafening. Fans cheered anyway, but I knew. Something inside me had broken. The label noticed. Their calls grew colder. "We need you healthy, Michael. We can't afford another canceled show." Promoters whispered about refunds, about ticket sales dropping. My manager cornered me backstage. "You're slipping," he said bluntly. "Get it together or we'll find someone who can." I wanted to scream that I was only human, that I wasn't a machine built to sing forever. But the machine of fame doesn't care about humanity. It cares about output. And my output was faltering. Anna saw it too. When I finally came home between tours, she studied me with worried eyes. "You're not the man I married," she whispered one night. "You're burning yourself out." I brushed her off, told her I was fine, told her I had to keep going. But deep down, I knew she was right. The cracks behind the curtain widened each day. On stage, I still smiled, still raised my arms to the crowd, still let the lights blind me. But off stage, I was crumbling, exhausted, lonely, numbed by pills and liquor, my voice faltering, my marriage strained. The world didn't see it. The fans still screamed, the magazines still printed glossy covers with my face, the cameras still flashed. But inside, I was unraveling. And like any structure, with too many cracks, it was only a matter of time before I collapsed completely. The first time it happened, I told myself it was nothing. Just a rough night, too little sleep, maybe the air conditioning in the hotel. My throat felt raw, but I powered through. The show had to go on. It always had to go on. But then it happened again. And again. Notes that once soared effortlessly began to wobble, fracture, disappear. High notes cut out mid-phrase, low notes scraped like sandpaper. I'd step off stage, drenched in sweat, throat burning as if I'd swallowed fire. Back in the dressing room, I'd cough until my chest ached, spit flecked with red. But when the stage manager knocked and said, "Encore, sir," I went back out. Fans didn't always notice at first. Crowds are forgiving when they love you. They'll sing louder, cheer harder, cover your cracks with their devotion. But I noticed, my band noticed, and the label noticed. Doctors warned me. "Your vocal cords are inflamed," one said after sliding a scope down my throat. "You need rest. Weeks, maybe months." "Not possible," I replied, shaking my head. "I've got a tour." He looked at me, pity in his eyes. "If you keep pushing, you could lose your voice permanently." I left the office with a prescription for steroids and a head full of denial. Permanent was a word I wasn't ready to face. Anna begged me to listen. "Michael, take a break, cancel a few shows. Your voice matters more than the money." But the truth was, the money mattered too. By then, expenses had ballooned: staff, promoters, lawyers, endless contracts. If I canceled, penalties would crush me. So I pushed forward, night after night, numbing the pain with pills and whiskey, convincing myself I could outlast the damage. One night in Nashville, the dam finally broke. It was a packed arena, lights blazing, thousands of fans chanting my name. I strummed the opening chords of my biggest hit, the song that had carried me from smoky bars to stardom. When I opened my mouth, nothing came out. Just a rasp, a broken whisper. The crowd faltered, confusion rippling like a wave. I forced myself to try again, veins straining in my neck, but the sound cracked and died. My hands shook on the guitar. The band stumbled, unsure whether to keep playing. Then mercifully the crowd began to sing. Thousands of voices lifted the lyrics I couldn't. Tears filled my eyes as I mouthed the words, strumming along, carried by their devotion. But inside I was shattered. Backstage afterwards, silence was heavy. No one looked me in the eye. My manager finally spoke, his voice cold. "We can't keep doing this. You need to fix it, or we'll find someone else who can." The label's calls grew sharper. "Take care of your voice," they said, "or we'll cut the next album." They offered no real help, only ultimatums. I was a product, and I was malfunctioning. Anna tried to hold me together. She brewed teas, bought humidifiers, whispered prayers as I slept fitfully. "You're more than your voice," she told me one night. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't. My voice wasn't just part of me, it was me. Without it, who was I? I canceled a few shows, but by then the damage was done. Ticket sales dipped, headlines questioned my health, whispers of replacement spread. I read an article once that said, Is Michael finished? The words hit harder than any insult shouted on the street. Finished, like my life was already a relic. Desperation made me reckless. I doubled the pills, doubled the whiskey, anything to numb the pain and push through. For a while it worked. I clawed my way through shows, voice raw but functional. But the cracks widened. Each night drained me further. Each note felt like tearing fabric. Then came the night in Boston. I walked on stage, lights blinding, guitar heavy in my hands. The crowd roared, but I felt hollow. I sang the first verse, and by the chorus, my voice was gone again, snapped like a string. The silence that followed was brutal. No roar, no forgiveness, just a low murmur of disappointment. I left the stage halfway through the set, my chest tight, my throat aflame. In the dressing room, I collapsed onto a chair, clutching my guitar as if it could save me. Anna knelt beside me, her eyes wet. "It's over, Michael," she whispered. "You can't keep doing this to yourself." I wanted to argue, to insist I could come back, but the words stuck in my ruined throat. Deep down, I knew she was right. That was the night I realized fame had a cost I could no longer pay. My voice, the one thing that had lifted me, defined me, saved me, was slipping away for good. And without it, I was already halfway invisible. The silence after my voice cracked in Boston wasn't just in the arena. It followed me everywhere. It rang in hotel rooms, echoed in my chest, and settled like dust on every phone call with the label. Silence, once a sacred pause before applause, had become the sound of my decline. For a while, I convinced myself I could bounce back. Rest, a few vocal treatments, maybe a new style, lower, softer, something easier on my throat. I even tried. I recorded demos that leaned more on my guitar than my singing. But when the label heard them, their response was lukewarm. "It's not what sells," they said. "Fans want the voice they remember." The truth was the fans were moving on. New singers were rising, fresh faces with endless energy and voices unscarred by abuse. Their songs climbed the charts while mine slid down week by week. The hit singles that once owned summers now barely clung to the bottom. I'd flip through magazines and see my photo replaced by theirs. My name disappeared from headlines. I was no longer the future. I was the past. Tours became harder to book. Promoters grew cautious. Ticket sales dwindled. In some cities, rows of empty seats stared back at me like accusations. Once, I had commanded stadiums. Now I was struggling to fill small theaters. The roar that once lifted me was replaced by scattered applause. Polite but thin, I tried to rally. I wrote new songs, poured my heart into lyrics about pain, survival, and change. Anna loved them. "This is your best work yet," she told me. But when I brought them to the label, they shook their heads. Too dark, too slow, the market's not interested. They wanted hits that sparkled, not truths that bled. That rejection cut deeper than losing my voice. My songs were my last anchor, my proof I still had something to give. When they dismissed them, it felt like they dismissed me entirely. Money, once an afterthought, became a looming shadow. Without packed tours and hit records, the flood of income slowed to a trickle. The mansion Anna and I had bought became a weight around our necks. Mortgage payments massive, maintenance endless. Cars, staff, luxuries piled on bills we could no longer cover. I started selling. First the extras, the cars we rarely drove, the designer clothes still with tags, the jewelry gifted at award shows. Then the guitars one by one, until I was left with only the pawn shop rescue I carry now. Each sale was like tearing away pieces of my identity. The press noticed my decline. Articles speculated about what went wrong. Some blamed overwork, others hinted at addiction, others simply called me washed up. Once journalists had begged for interviews. Now they wrote about my fall without even calling for comment. My face, once smiling from magazine covers, appeared in tabloids with cruel captions. "Has-been singer spotted looking rough." Anna tried to shield me from it. She hid newspapers, turned off the television when gossip shows aired. But I knew you can't hide whispers when they follow you everywhere. The worst part was the fans. Not the ones who stayed loyal. The letters from people who said my songs still mattered to them kept me going. but the ones who turned cold. At a show in Cleveland, a man shouted mid-set, "Bring back the old voice!" Laughter rippled through the crowd. My hands froze on the guitar strings. I forced myself to finish the song, but inside I was breaking. Afterward, in the dressing room, Anna held me as I shook. "You're still you," she whispered, "even if the charts don't say it." But the charts had been my compass, my measure of worth. Without them, I was lost. By the end of that year, the label dropped me. One curt phone call ended a partnership that had defined my life. "We're moving in a new direction," they said, "a direction without me." That was the moment I realized fame doesn't fade gracefully. It falls like a guillotine. One day you're everywhere, the next you're gone. I stood in my empty living room, foreclosure looming, Anna's suitcase by the door, and whispered to myself, I used to be on top of the charts. Now I'm not even on the list. The silence answered back. When the label cut me loose, it wasn't just contracts and money I lost, it was people. The phone that once rang every hour with invitations, interviews, and collaborations fell silent. And the silence wasn't just business, it was personal. Friends, or people I thought were friends, vanished like smoke. At the peak, my phone had buzzed nonstop. Musicians wanted to write together, producers pitched beats, club owners begged me to appear. Offstage, invitations poured in for dinners, parties, charity events. Everyone wanted a piece of me. And I gave freely, believing the attention was love, that the smiles were genuine. But when my songs fell off the charts, when my voice cracked and headlines mocked me, the invitations dried up. The texts stopped. The phone calls went unanswered. Slowly, one by one, they disappeared. I remember calling a fellow singer I had once toured with, a man I considered a brother. We'd shared cramped vans and midnight diners before fame made us stars. I left him a voicemail. "Hey, it's been a while. Would love to catch up." Weeks passed with no reply. When I tried again, the line went straight to voicemail. Eventually, I stopped trying. Another so-called friend, a producer who had once promised we'd work together forever, posted a photo online of a studio session with someone new. The caption read, "The future of music is here." I wasn't tagged. I wasn't the future anymore. Even Anna noticed the shift. She used to spend evenings laughing with other wives and girlfriends in green rooms or over dinners. But as my star dimmed, those friendships dimmed too. Calls to Anna stopped, texts went unanswered. The women who once toasted her across candlelit tables now avoided her eyes at the grocery store. It's a special kind of loneliness when people erase you, not because you've wronged them, but because you no longer shine. They treat failure like a disease. They step back, afraid your downfall might stain them. One night I ran into a former bandmate at a bar. He was with new friends, laughing loudly. I approached, smiling, ready to reconnect. But when he saw me, his laughter faltered. "Hey, Michael," he said, his tone awkward. Then after a few polite words, he turned back to his group, dismissing me with his silence. I walked out, my chest hollow, wondering how we'd gone from brothers on stage to strangers at the bar. The loneliness grew heavier each day. Anna tried to hold us together. She reminded me that fame had always been fleeting, that real love was what we had, and I believed her. At least I wanted to. But the silence of empty rooms, the absence of friends, the weight of bills we couldn't pay, it crushed me. We sold the house, moved into a small apartment. The walls were thin, the neighbors loud, but it was all we could afford. Anna decorated as best she could, flowers on the windowsill, photos on the wall, but I saw the sadness in her eyes. She had married a man bathed in light, and now she shared shadows with me. I spiraled. Nights at bars grew longer. Drinks became stronger. Pills dulled the edges but carved deeper holes. I snapped at Anna. "Shaik the mom. Banana," ashamed of myself even as the words left my mouth. She cried sometimes, quietly in the next room. I hated myself for causing it, but I didn't know how to stop. The final crack in our marriage came on a night colder than most. Bills piled on the kitchen table, eviction notices mixed with overdue utilities. Anna sat across from me, her face pale. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. I stared at her, heart pounding. "Do what?" "Watch you disappear. Watch us disappear." Her voice shook, but her words were steady. I love you, Michael. I always will, but I can't carry this with you anymore. Her suitcase was packed by morning. I begged, pleaded, promised I would change, but she kissed my cheek with trembling lips and walked out the door. The sound of it closing was louder than any applause I'd ever known. Friends had faded, fans had faded, and now even Anna was gone. That was the night I sat on the floor of our empty apartment, clutching my guitar, and realized I wasn't just out of the spotlight, I was out of everyone's life. The man who had once filled arenas couldn't even fill a living room anymore. The silence was complete. The day Anna left, I told myself I'd be fine. I'd find work, find stability, maybe even find my way back to music. But when the landlord taped the eviction notice to the door and I had no money left to fight it, denial crumbled. The apartment emptied, the few possessions I had left fit into a single duffel bag. When I walked out that final time, there was no applause, no camera flash, just the hollow echo of my footsteps in the hallway. I carried my life on my shoulder and stepped into a world that suddenly felt hostile. Every doorway I passed reminded me of what I no longer had. Every lit window was a frame of someone else's comfort, warmth, family. My body was heavy with exhaustion, my chest tight with shame. I had nowhere to go. As the sun dipped, I wandered toward downtown. People streamed past, faces buried in their phones, arms wrapped in shopping bags. They didn't see me. Or maybe they did, but looked away on purpose. I was already beginning to fade into that class of people society prefers not to notice. When darkness fell, I found myself at a park. Benches lined the paths, most already claimed by others whose eyes told stories as broken as mine. I hesitated, clutching my duffel tighter, then chose an empty one beneath a flickering lamp. The wood was cold and hard beneath me, but I had no choice. I stretched out, the bag under my head, and stared up at the branches clawing at the night sky. Sleep didn't come easily. Every sound jolted me, the rustle of leaves, footsteps crunching gravel, laughter echoing from a nearby bar. I pulled my jacket tighter, but the wind sliced through. Hunger gnawed at me, louder than the city. I hadn't eaten since morning, and the coins in my pocket weren't enough for even a sandwich. I closed my eyes and tried to remember better nights. I pictured hotel rooms after shows, crisp sheets, the hum of air conditioning. I remembered Anna curled beside me, her hand resting on my chest. I remembered the roar of crowds, the stage lights, the music that once filled every corner of my life. The contrast was so brutal that tears leaked down my cheeks. Around midnight, a security guard shook me awake. "You can't sleep here," he said flatly, flashlight beam in my eyes. I mumbled an apology, slung my bag over my shoulder, and stumbled back into the streets. The city was colder now, lonelier. I tried doorways next, curling up in the recessed entrance of a closed store. The concrete leached warmth from my bones. The smell of stale urine stung my nose. I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering violently. Above me, neon lights flickered, buzzing like an insect. People passed, some glancing down, others stepping wide as though my presence might contaminate them. One man sneered, "Get a job," and kept walking. I wanted to shout, I had one. I had everything. But my throat was tight, my voice a whisper even to myself. Hours crawled by. My body ached, my mind spun. I counted the seconds between footsteps, between car horns, between gusts of wind. The night stretched endless, cruel. By dawn, I was numb, my limbs stiff, my stomach hollow, my eyes gritty from lack of sleep. I watched the sky pale, watched the city wake. People in suits hurried to work. Children clutched parents' hands. Coffee cups steamed in strangers' hands. Life moved on, as though I didn't exist. That morning, I truly understood what it meant to be invisible. On stage, I had once been larger than life, every spotlight fixed on me. Now, on the streets, I was less than a shadow. People walked past me as though I were part of the pavement. As the sun climbed, I stood slowly, shouldering my bag. I whispered to myself, "This is real. This is your life now." The words stung, but they were true. My first night on the street was the longest of my life. It stripped me bare, showed me how fragile success had been, how quickly everything could be lost. I thought I had known loneliness before, in hotel rooms and backstage corridors, but true loneliness was lying on cold concrete, unheard, unseen, forgotten. And yet, even then, a small part of me clung to survival. My body ached, but my heart still beat. My voice was weak, but it hadn't vanished completely. I was broken, yes, but I wasn't gone. Not yet. My first night on the street was brutal, but the days that followed taught me something even harsher. How it feels to be invisible. Fame had once made me hyper-visible. People couldn't get enough of me. Cameras chased me. Fans screamed my name. Now, the same city that once plastered my face on billboards treated me like I wasn't there at all. I set up most mornings near a busy intersection, guitar in my lap, duffel bag at my feet. I'd strum softly, hoping for a coin or two, hoping someone might stop and listen. But mostly they didn't. Suits brushed past me, eyes locked on their phones. Mothers pulled their children closer. Teenagers laughed as they hurried by, their earbuds sealing them into a world where I didn't exist. That absence, those eyes sliding past me like I was a ghost, hurt more than cruelty. Insults at least acknowledged I was real. But invisibility? That was erasure. One afternoon I played one of my old hits, the song that had once defined summers. The one crowds had shouted back at me until my chest vibrated with their energy. I sang it on that corner, voice hoarse but steady, and not a single person stopped. Hundreds of feet marched past, hundreds of eyes flicked away. I might as well have been playing to the wind. I thought of arenas, of the roar that once lifted me, and for a moment I wanted to smash the guitar against the pavement. But then I remembered the guitar was all I had left. Breaking it would be like breaking myself. So I kept playing, even when no one listened. At night, I'd find shelter under awnings or in subway stations. People avoided eye contact, stepping wide as if proximity might stain them. Some even tossed bills near me without slowing down, not looking at my face, not wanting to see me as human. I collected the money, but the way it was given reminded me of scraps tossed to strays. One evening I caught my reflection in a store window. I almost didn't recognize the man staring back. Beard overgrown, jacket frayed, eyes hollow. I pressed my hand to the glass, whispering, "That's not me." But it was. The man the world ignored was me now. I remembered Anna's words from long ago. Don't let the lights blind you. I thought I had understood them then, but I hadn't. It wasn't the lights that blinded me, it was their absence. Without them, I was lost in darkness. The cruelty came too, though less often. Teenagers sometimes filmed me on their phones, laughing as I strummed. "Sing us a hit, old man," one shouted, tossing a crumpled dollar at my feet. Their laughter echoed long after they disappeared, stabbing deeper than silence. But still, invisibility was worse. There were moments of grace, small but powerful. A child tugging his mother's hand, whispering, "He's singing." A barista sneaking me a stale muffin at the end of her shift. A man in a business suit pausing long enough to nod before dropping change into my cup. Those moments were rare, but they kept me tethered to the idea that I still existed, that someone saw me. One night, curled under a bridge with my guitar against my chest, I thought about the word invisible. Fame had once made me crave privacy, crave escape from cameras and questions. Back then, I would have given anything to be unseen. Now I would have given everything for just one pair of eyes to look at me and truly see. The irony was sharp. When the world knew my name, I felt unseen as a person. When the world forgot me, I felt unseen as a human. As dawn crept in, I whispered to myself, "You're still here." Saying it out loud helped. If the world couldn't see me, I'd see myself. If they erased me, I'd write myself back with each chord, each lyric, each breath, because disappearing completely, that was the one thing I refused to let happen. It was another cold evening, and I had planted myself on my usual corner with the guitar. My fingers were stiff from the wind, my voice no more than a husky thread. I wasn't expecting anything. No coins, no smiles, no acknowledgement. By then I had learned to play mostly for myself, to remind the air I still existed. That's when a small voice interrupted. "Can you play a song for me?" I looked up, startled. A boy stood there, maybe 7 or 8 years old, his backpack still slung over his shoulders. His mother hovered a few steps behind, anxious eyes scanning me. "Come on, honey," she urged. "We should go." But the boy didn't move. He stared at my guitar like it was magic. "Please," he said softly. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. When was the last time someone asked me to play, not because they expected a show, but because they simply wanted to hear? Years ago, stadiums had roared my name. Now this one boy was the only audience I had. "What do you want to hear?" I asked, my voice cracking. He shrugged. "Anything." So I started with something simple, a lullaby I had written long ago, one that never made it onto any album. My fingers stumbled at first, but soon the melody flowed. The notes floated into the evening air, fragile but steady. The boy's eyes widened. He smiled, swaying slightly, as if the music had grabbed hold of him. For a moment, the noise of the city faded. Even his mother paused, torn between worry and wonder. When I finished, there was silence. Not the cold silence of indifference, but the warm kind, like the hush after a prayer. The boy clapped his small hands together, grinning. "That was beautiful," he said. "Beautiful." The word hit me harder than any applause ever had. His mother finally stepped forward, gently pulling his hand. "We need to go." She glanced at me, her expression softening. "Thank you," she whispered before leading him away. I sat frozen, the guitar still in my lap. For the first time in months, I felt like a musician again. Not a beggar, not a ghost, not invisible. A boy had listened. A boy had smiled. And for those few minutes, the world had remembered me. That night under the bridge where I usually slept, I replayed the moment over and over, his face, his clapping, the word beautiful. I whispered it to myself like a prayer. Beautiful. Not broken, not worthless, not invisible. Beautiful. The next evening, I returned to the same corner and played the lullaby again, even though no one asked. A few people slowed as they passed, curious. A couple even stopped for a verse, their eyes soft before they moved on. It wasn't much, but it was something. It reminded me that music could still reach people, even if only for a moment. One night, a man carrying groceries paused mid-step. He listened for a verse, then nodded. "I know that voice," he said quietly. My chest tightened. He didn't name me, didn't shout, didn't ask for an autograph. He just dropped a few dollars into my cup and said, "Don't stop singing." Don't stop. Those words echoed in me like a commandment. Even stripped of fame, even voiceless compared to what I used to be, I still had something left. A song, a note, a fragment of melody. That was enough to prove I was alive. I realized then that music wasn't about the charts or the labels or even the crowds. It had always been about connection. A boy on a sidewalk, a stranger with groceries, a mother whispering thank you. Those were my audience now. Smaller, quieter, but no less real. For the first time since the fall began, I let myself believe that maybe I wasn't finished. Maybe as long as I had breath in my lungs and strings under my fingers, I could still matter. As I drifted into sleep that night, the city buzzing faintly overhead, I held my guitar close and whispered, "You're still mine." Because no matter what the world had taken, my home, my money, my friends, my wife, it couldn't take the music inside me. Not yet, not ever. The nights are still cold, the sidewalks still unforgiving, and people still walk past me like I'm air. Yet something has changed. Not in the world, but inside me. I've learned that even in the darkest silence, music hums quietly, waiting for me to listen. Some mornings I wake stiff and hungry, my breath visible in the dawn air. I sling my guitar over my shoulder and find my corner. The city doesn't care that I'm there. But when my fingers strum that first chord, the air shifts. Not for the crowds, they still hurry past. But for me, the sound reminds me I am alive, that I am not entirely gone. I think often of the boy who asked me to play, of his small hands clapping, of the way his mother's voice softened when she said, "Thank you." That moment lingers like a chorus I can't forget. It proves that music still matters, even if only to one person, even if only for a few minutes. Sometimes when I close my eyes on the sidewalk, I hear echoes of the past, The roar of arenas, the chants of my name, the blinding lights. For a long time, those memories were knives, cutting me with what I'd lost. Now, they're softer. They remind me that I once lived fully, that I once gave something to the world that mattered. Maybe I can't fill stadiums anymore, but I can still fill a quiet corner with sound, and maybe that's enough. One evening, as I was packing up after a long day, an older man approached. He carried a worn guitar case, battered like mine. He stopped, smiled, and said, "Used to be up there too. Bands, bars, stages. Life happens." He didn't offer pity, just recognition. We talked for a while, two ghosts of music sharing stories. Before he left, he said, "As long as you can still play, you're still you." His words sank deep, because that's what I've been clinging to, that even stripped of everything, I'm still me when I play. The music doesn't erase the hunger or the cold, but it reminds me I exist beyond them. I won't lie, some days are unbearable. Days when my voice is too ragged to sing, when no one stops, when insults cut deeper than the wind. Days when I wonder if disappearing would be easier. But then I play a chord, hear its vibration in my chest, and I remember, disappearing completely isn't an option. There's still music inside me. The world may no longer know my name. The charts may have erased me. Friends and family may be gone. But when I strum a guitar, when I hum a melody under my breath, when a child pauses to listen, those are the moments that prove I am not invisible to myself. Music was never about fame, though it took me years to realize that. It wasn't about gold records, flashing cameras, or roaring crowds. It was about connection. And even now on these streets, I still find it in the nod of a stranger, in the smile of a child, in the rare coin dropped with genuine kindness. The spotlight is gone, but the flame remains. Tonight, as I curl beneath an awning with my guitar in my arms, I whisper to the city above me, I'm still here. I'm still singing. The world may not answer, but the music inside me does. A steady hum, a fragile melody, proof that even in silence, I have not disappeared. I was a famous singer once. Now I am a man on the streets. But fame was never the true measure of me. Music was, and music, broken, ragged, quiet as it may be, is still alive in me. And as long as there is music inside me, I am not invisible.